Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on integrating financial education and tools into organizations' delivery of service. My name is Michael Roush, and I'm the director of the Real Economic Impact Network at the National Disability Institute. I would like to say thank you, a special thank you to our sponsor, Hands-On Banking and Wells Fargo and Hands-On Banking for sponsoring today's webinar and also being here to share some information with us today on how to integrate Hands-On Banking into our service of delivery. Before we get started, I do need to go over some housekeeping tips. First of all, listening to the webinar, the audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can reopen by going to the Communicate menu at the top of the screen and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or you prefer to listen by phone, dial 1-650-479-3207 and enter the meeting code 401-766-437. Please note you do not need to enter an attendee ID. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you do not see the captions, you may need to open the Media Viewer panel by selecting the Media Viewer button in the upper right-hand corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels like chat, Q&A, and/or participants. We will have a Q&A portion, so please use the chat box or Q&A box to send any questions you have during the webinar to Michael Roush or NDI Admin, which you'll see NDI Admin on the right hand of your screen. And we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion. If you're listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing questions to mroush, M-R-O-U-S-H, at ndi-inc.org. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the National Disability Institute website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the host, NDI Admin, or you may also email at kauchenback@ndi-inc.org. Great. So as we get started into our program, for those of you who are new to NDI, I'd like to share with you information on the National Disability Institute. The National Disability Institute is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to building a better economic future for Americans with disabilities. We are the first national organization committed exclusively to championing economic empowerment, asset development, and financial stability for all persons across the full spectrum of disabilities. National Disability Institute affects change through public education, training, technical assistance, and policy development to help the 1 in 3 Americans with disabilities living in poverty take steps towards a brighter financial future. To learn more about National Disability Institute, go to www.realeconomicimpact.org. So for today's webinar, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is integrating financial education into our service delivery system. So today's webinar, we're going to identify why integrating financial education within our system is important. We're also going to have an overview expanding on the conversation from last Wednesday on how hands-on banking offers a variety of strategies for delivery of financial education. We're also going to look a little bit deeper at the tools, the new tools we shared last week that will enhance the delivery of financial education for persons with disabilities, their families, and other clients that we serve. Excuse me. And then finally, we're going to highlight the upcoming webinar series, which is the last one of our three-part series, which will take place next Wednesday. So first of all, what is financial education and why are we talking about it? So financial education is important for individuals, particularly including individuals who have a disability, their families, and others. We know that financial education provides us with the knowledge and skills we need to help move towards financial capability, as well as then leading us into financial well-being. The provision of financial education helps us understand the principles and develop the skills towards earning, managing, and investing money, taking steps to protect our money, and developing assets that leverage resources towards financial well-being into the future. We also know through research as well as our work in the field on the ground that there's a positive impact on integrating financial education into our service of delivery. First, I want to highlight the positive impact for the individual. So we know that when we integrate financial education and give individuals the knowledge and skills they need around managing money, that it increases the likelihood of success because we recognize that a job is one goal, but not the only goal. The ultimate goal is to help an individual achieve financial well-being. It also increases long-term planning for the individual. We also see that greater educational attainment takes place, as well it improves the overall economic stability for individuals. So you might think, well, what is the impact or the positive impact for the organization if we do this? Well, studies show that it improves employment outcomes. It also shows that it reduces employer turnover costs, which is always a big one. And it also shows that it supports staff in program outcomes and supports staff in having positive program outcomes. So the impact of integrating financial education has a positive impact for both the individual as well as the organization. So as we start to look at integrating financial education into our system, it's really important that we look at and analyze what is our customer flow. What does it look like and in our service of delivery? And then as we start to look at this, from the intake process to the needs assessment to the types of services being provided, counseling, job placement, training services, so those services provided, we know then leads to employment program outcomes, right? What we're trying to work with our client to achieve. Career development, employment retention, successful completion of a counseling program or whatever. But it's important for us to sit and look at what does that customer flow look like from beginning to end as we're providing the service. So once we look at this and we understand our customer flow, it then opens the door for us to be able to look at how do we incorporate financial education into the customer flow. And one of the things that we look at is that we know that research tells us that people need to hear and or see information at least 3 times before they take action on it. So here we give an example of a customer flow where we show 3 different places where financial education might be included. So during the needs assessment, including the intake process, financial education might be delivered through a handout, through a class or something, or an online class. Next is we're providing services and guiding the individual through these different service provisions. We can identify possibly other ways to have financial and education integrated. And then, of course, at the outcomes piece, the employment. So once they've successfully completed the program, obtained jobs, we don't want to stop there. We still want to have opportunities for them to get financial education, to put that knowledge and skills into positive action, so then it will lead to financial stability or financial well-being for the individuals. So this gives an example of 3 ways financial education could potentially be added to the customer flow. And in just a few minutes, we're going to learn and hear examples of different ways that hands-on banking might be incorporated into an individual's customer flow. So before we do that, we do have a polling question. I know some of you participated in our session, and I know I just recently mentioned hands-on banking. So we'd like to know, before today, had you heard of hands-on banking? Yes or no? And the polling is on the right side of your screen, so please take a minute to answer the question. We'll wait another few seconds before we close out the polling question. And see that the poll has ended, and we'll wait to see the results. And Katie, there we see. Okay, so the results are in. So of those on the call, 38% have heard of hands-on banking before, and then it shows that 39% answered no. So great. So you're in for a treat then. For those of you who said no, and for those of you who said yes, we're going to go a little bit deeper to show you a little bit more about hands-on banking. And to share some strategies on how hands-on banking program can be integrated into your program. We're grateful today to have Bonnie Wallace with us. She is the Vice President and Channel Manager for Wells Fargo's Hands-on Banking Program, which is an award-winning program that provides free financial education, tools, and resources to a variety of audiences. In her role as a channel manager, she works to improve the financial capabilities of underserved and unbanked communities through strategic partnerships with nonprofit and government organizations. So we're grateful to have Bonnie join us today. And with that, Bonnie, I'm going to turn it over to you to share information with us on integrating hands-on banking into our system.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really excited about being able to share some ideas for integrating hands-on banking into the service delivery platforms of the more than 200 people attending this webinar. So it's just incredible to see this type of engagement. And for those of you on the call, especially those who haven't viewed hands-on banking yet, you may be feeling a little bit uncertain about your ability to deliver financial education training. The first thing I want you to know is that you're not alone. In the first webinar in this series, which was held last week, we learned that there are many of you who are feeling not quite ready to integrate this financial education training into your program. And that's okay. That's what this webinar series is for. In the first webinar, Darlene Goins provided an overview of hands-on banking, and share that there's a wide variety of content and tools that you have available at your fingertips. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on that foundation that Darlene set by exploring some options for integrating hands-on banking, both the curriculum and the tools, in a way that will not only meet the needs of your clients, but I'm happy to say the focus today is on you as well. I'm a little bit slower on the slides than Michael. There we go. So the first thing that I want to focus on is just kind of a recap or a reinforcement of one of the key messages that Darlene shared last week. And that's that the hands-on banking curriculum can be leveraged in a variety of ways, from holding in-person workshops in a classroom setting, to educating yourself independently online, to supporting one-on-one counseling and coaching efforts. You can use each of these approaches alone or in combination with one another. So what really happens is you have kind of the ultimate flexibility with hands-on banking. The tools that you have available to you include instructor guides, activities, and assessments, as well as online courses and articles. As I mentioned, we're really going to focus today on what's right for you. Your comfort level is going to have a direct impact on achieving successful outcomes. And that's why determining your approach for integrating hands-on banking really needs to start with you. Of course, you should consider basic things like whether or not you have space for an in-person session, and whether or not your clients have access to the internet, or you have access to the internet in your space. And you need to consider the needs of your clients, certainly. But you also need to consider your own style and what you're most comfortable doing. So before you dive in, I encourage you to take some time to really think about when you've done your best work. Are you energized by interacting with a group? Or does the thought of presenting in a classroom session make your heart sink into your stomach? How would you describe your teaching style? And how would you describe your ideal situation? And you can start thinking about that right now. Some of us would define ourselves as traditionalists. Our favorite approach to teaching is good old lecture and discussion. Traditionalists like having a group together in a room, which gives you the opportunity to connect with your students, and it gives your students the opportunity to connect with one another. Hands-on banking supports what I'm calling traditionalists with materials that can be downloaded and printed. The instructor guides give you everything you need to deliver a successful workshop, including scripting, should you need it, activities, handouts, and assessments. Everything you need to be successful is right in that instructor guide. These tools are great for those of us who like to prepare by reading through the materials and making notes in the margins. And there's plenty of opportunity for you to customize the lessons, adding your own stories to make the material engaging and relatable. So you can see here, these are just some snapshots of what these tools look like. If you don't really identify with the characteristics of a traditionalist, perhaps you're a digital agent. There are many reasons why online education is a booming industry. You see it everywhere. There are reasons why so many people like and even prefer online learning. For example, online education allows people to learn at their own pace, any time of the day or night, and from any location. If you don't have the space to deliver training to a group in a classroom, or if it's a struggle or an inconvenience for some or all of your clients to attend training in person, online education is available on handsonbanking.org to help. You can think of online education as a way to complement the work you're doing with your clients. Mixing interactive online education with one-on-one coaching is a great way to establish knowledge and then leverage that knowledge to drive changes in behavior to achieve financial capability. For those of you who were able to attend the first webinar, some of these tools, there they are. Oh, we went too far. There's a bit of a delay. Some of these tools may look familiar to you, and these are tools that are available, again, on handsonbanking.org. You can instruct your clients to work through all of the lessons in the adult curriculum, for example, or you can advise them to focus on a topical area such as credit, and then follow up with a one-on-one discussion that includes steps that the client will take to leverage the learnings. So again, hands-on banking is providing you great flexibility in how to use these tools to meet the needs of your clients, as well as to meet your own needs and style. This is one of my favorites, the Great Combiner. If you're thinking that the description of both the traditionalist and the digital agent sounds good to you, you might want to consider the approach of the Great Combiner. And for those of you who have seen the Transformer movies, this term may be familiar. The Great Combiner takes the best of two approaches to create a new form. In this example, the Great Combiner leads an in-person workshop and includes online elements to engage learners. So with this approach, you're really leveraging offline tools, such as the instructor guide that you can see here, with online tools, such as calculators, quizzes, and assessments. Sorry, there we go, the coach. And then this is our last and final persona. And the coach is going to use all of the resources available through hands-on banking to educate themselves and prepare for coaching sessions. So again, in the last webinar, in one of the polling questions, we did learn that many of the attendees really question their ability to deliver the financial education information. You know, there was clearly an indication that there were some concerns around confidence. The nice thing here is hands-on banking will not only help you educate others, it will help you educate yourself. So after the coach uses all of the resources available to educate themselves and prepare for that coaching session, they can then leverage the same tools to support the individual needs of a client using content specific to topical interests and life events. So just for example, you may have a client who, through a needs assessment, you learn that they really want to buy a home, but they've not been successful at savings. So going out to hands-on banking, you can do a little research yourself and find that where it really probably starts is making sure that that client has a budget, that it's documented, that they've got clear goals set, and you can use that goal-setting worksheet. And as you explore the tools available, you'll also see that there's information out there, for example, on money style. You know, what are the client's attitudes and values around money? Armed with that information and armed with those tools, you can sit down with your client, have a one-on-one coaching session where you dig down into values around money, where you have a discussion around goals and you're able to use the goal-setting worksheet to document what those goals are. And then you can actually use education and information and tools to create a budget that will help your client identify opportunities to create money that they can save. So that could be, for example, by looking at their cell phone bill and seeing if there's ways to decrease that, or how to cut down on some of the unnecessary expenses. So just in closing, as I wrap this up, I had some fun thinking about different teaching personas, but there really are two key messages I want to leave you with. The first one is that it's really important for you to understand your own needs and your own style, as well as the needs and styles of your clients, in determining the best approach for integrating financial education. The more confident you are and the more comfortable you are with your approach, the greater success you'll have in enabling financial capability for others. The second message I'd like to leave you with is that hands-on banking is a highly flexible program that supports a wide variety of approaches. The curriculum, the tools, and the activities can be used and combined in countless ways to meet your needs and the needs of your clients. So as we just learned from the poll, we had about half of the attendees who were not yet familiar with hands-on banking. So what I encourage you to do, for those familiar and those not, is to really spend some time on handsonbanking.org and explore what's out there. Understand there's a tremendous amount of content and there's many different ways to deliver it, keeping in mind that your needs are important in determining the best approach to integrate financial education into your service delivery platform. And Michael, do you want to take the polling question?
Great. Yes, thank you, Bonnie, and thank you for sharing that information with us. It was really great and helpful, and I really liked the defining the traditionalist to the great combiner and the digital agent. So I think I have to determine which one I am in that. Maybe the great combiner. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you for sharing that information with us today. We will have a chance to ask Bonnie questions. Thank you all for submitting your questions so far. You can continue to do so in the chat or Q&A box. Before we go on to our next presenter, I would like for us to do another polling question. And so this polling question is, as you learned about the traditionalist, the digital agent, or the great combiner, or the coaching piece, the combination of both, which approach do you think best suits your service delivery? You can select in-person, classroom, online, one-on-one, or a combination of both online and classroom. So please complete the poll on the right-hand side of your screen. Give you a few more seconds, and then we'll close out the poll. All right, Katie, are we able to close out the poll? All right, so the poll has ended, and now we'll just wait for the responses. All right, I think we're still waiting. We tabulate all of these responses by hand. Just kidding. It's done automatically, but we just had to wait a few minutes. Okay, so it looks based on the responses, those that did respond, about 26% are looking at one-on-one, and about 25% is the combination of both. So that's great. That's helpful information. So thank you for submitting your responses to the polling question. So now what we want to do is now that we've learned about hands-on banking and some of the additional pieces and how we can integrate it, we now want to look at the new tools that we shared last week, but look a little bit deeper at how those can be integrated as well as, and also how they would complement your financial education program. For those of you who were on our webinar last week, I hope you had a chance to go and download the materials from our website and check them out. We look forward to getting your feedback on those. And as we look at this, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lori Schaller, who's the Manager of Financial Empowerment here at the National Disability Institute, who's going to share with us some additional information on the programs. And I hit the slides. All right. So with that, Lori, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So as Michael said, we'll be discussing new tools that have been developed here at NDI to enhance the delivery of financial education for persons who have disabilities and their family members. And just to remember that that is a large segment of our communities, individuals and family members who have disabilities. I'm trying, okay, here we go. So the materials have been prepared to be used as a way to integrate financial education into American job centers and community-based organizations that you all work together to provide services to individuals who have disabilities. And the toolkit has been developed to provide an overview of why integrating financial education is important, and it provides 6 steps on how to integrate financial education. So these materials, again, are posted at the NDI website, and you can view these online. So new to these products this year are disability supplemental guides. And they cover disability sensitivity to provide a background and content for instructors to understand the disability community better, common types of disabilities, effective communication strategies for meeting with people who have disabilities. When someone presents with a service animal, how to effectively provide services to that individual who needs that service animal. And to address any physical barriers that we may have within our buildings, or any barriers to an individual being able to access the full range of services that we can provide to the community as a whole. And we include additional resources too that you will be able to find in your communities or at the national level that will support you in providing services. So the disability supplemental guides for hands-on banking, they correspond to the following sections that are offered through the hands-on banking curriculum. So there's a segment specifically for young adults, another segment specifically for adults, and a third focused towards self-employment and entrepreneurship. Now, based upon the individuals that we may be meeting with, some materials for an adult, it may be more appropriate that we're sharing with them information that typically we would share with a young adult. So there's sort of a mix and match depending upon what we see with that individual that we are meeting with at that particular moment. And NDI has provided an additional guide that is specifically around protected savings, and it includes ABLE accounts and covers that in detail. This is something relatively new to communities for disability families and providers to be informed of. So the quick reference guides, they list common barriers that are identified by people who have disabilities and their providers around employment, earnings capability, money management, and financial capability. So how did we identify these 15 common barriers? So we surveyed the staff here at NDI that are involved with many employment and financial capability initiatives, and also our providers out in the community who concentrate their efforts on financial capability. So in these guides, we've referenced easy-to-read statistics and information and resources, and again, these materials reference directly to the hands-on banking financial education curriculum, so that this is a foundation of information specifically around individuals who have disabilities, and it ties back to the hands-on banking curriculum that is really designed for the public overall. So barrier topics include employment, that a person may be under the impression that they're not allowed to work, for example, because they receive disability benefits. So the content provides background information that individuals who do qualify for disability benefits are in fact allowed to work, that there are employment opportunities for adults specifically, and how that can increase a person's ability to have sufficient income to address their needs. And there is information specifically for people who may be re-entering following a conviction or have concerns about a conviction and their ability to work. So there are programs and services designed specifically to meet those individuals' needs. The question of reliable transportation comes up quite often. So there's background information to that concern. Home ownership. I've met many people in American Job Centers who maybe initially come in because they're struggling to pay their utility bills or make their mortgage payment. And understanding where that person is at now, meeting the immediate need, and providing a background about steps that that person can take while having a disability to, again, increase their income or manage their finances or access resources around housing can help that person to move forward. And these barriers include education, past student loans that may be due at this time, accessing Social Security Administration public work benefits and Social Security work supports that are available, managing money, developing that spending plan like Bonnie mentioned, putting together a budget, work expenses, managing those new expenses, and being able to be positioned to start employment and maintain employment while affording work-related expenses. How needing good credit plays into a person being able to start a job, apply for a job, and what supports the American Job Centers and vocational rehabilitation can provide for an individual who may need access, for example, to federal bonding, to be able to interview and have insurance that will cover that person's employment for the first 6 months with a new employer. Protected savings opportunities for individuals who have disabilities. Many people indicate that they're concerned that if they begin to work, they may lose access to their medical benefits, and those materials discuss how often when a person begins employment, they in fact have access to more medical benefits that can help to reduce out-of-pocket expenses for having things like doctor's appointments or going for physical therapy, affording prescriptions, and things of that nature. And then the entrepreneur work supports and savings as well. Okay, so for example, a person could say, gee, I'm really not allowed to work. My letter from Social Security, in fact, says that I am totally and permanently disabled. I am not allowed to work. Well, the Disability Supplement and Reference Guides provide information about employment and training programs and Social Security work supports for individuals who have been determined totally and permanently disabled. So we have seen many people in our communities who had an event that made it impossible maybe for them to work for a period of time. They've healed. They maybe will always have a disability, but they're feeling well enough now that if they had access to employment, they would be able to work full or part-time, whatever best meets the employer's needs and that individual's needs. So to understand these barriers underlying individuals' perception or current reality and their associated barrier can help an instructor to engage in meaningful dialogue. So all of these materials are intended to give content, whether we read the materials one-on-one, whether we hand out the materials to individuals, and they pick maybe from the 15 piles of information, what information they find relevant to themselves and their community members as well. And they can take steps towards resolving that barrier. And so, like when I work in an American Job Center, I want to, be able to have meaningful dialogue with people so that they, yes, return for additional services, and when they return, they're in a different place, and we can talk about moving forward for continuing education and employment that will help that person to establish greater financial capability. So again, this competency, when instructors have an easy-to-reference guide, they can develop a sense of competency when potential barriers are mentioned. So again, we want to invite you to take a look at these materials, begin to have dialogue with your coworkers, your community partners, and then with the individuals who present for services. And references and resources can be shared with participants, and people are more likely to take constructive action that leads to goals of financial stability when providers are confident in their direction. And we understand that it may take providers, maybe 3 providers in the community, to communicate the same consistent message as that person goes for services at 3 different doors. So, we understand that people may receive services from the Department of Social Services. They may receive services from Social Security Administration and from the American Job Center, vocational rehabilitation. We want everyone to have a unified message to be able to move forward. The Disability Supplement and Reference Guides are designed to be used by American Job Centers, vocational rehabilitation offices, and community partners who provide services to people who have disabilities. Marketing research reminds us that people need to hear new information at least 3 times, and the materials are designed to equip all providers and all participants with information that pertains to them, to individual situations. So this also positions us that when we work collaboratively, when we have a network of providers addressing individuals' needs who have disabilities, that we can share our successful outcomes with our collaborating partners. So research demonstrates that when financial education and benefits planning services are provided to people who have disabilities, employment and income outcomes are positively impacted. Sharing the Disability Supplement and Reference Guides with community partners strengthens the message and has the capability of improving financial capability and stability for the community overall. So I know if my neighbors are doing well, it helps to boost my ability in my community to do well, and the whole community as a whole takes a step up. So next steps. Again, we invite you to download and review the Disability Supplement and Reference Guides. Please reach out to us as you have questions, and we'll be certain to get back to you promptly. Please access the hands-on banking materials, and this is a specific link to be able to view those materials on the hands-on banking website. Invite your community partners to sign up for the next webinar on November 15th. And please take the time to review last year's archived presentations. And if you missed, last week's presentation, we invite you, you can listen to the archived or recorded version that is posted on the NDI website as well. So, Michael, I would like to leave this for you. Next polling question.
Great. Thank you, Lori. And thank you for sharing this information with us. So we do have one more polling question. So now that you've heard this additional information about hands-on banking and integrating it, as well as some of these new tools, the question is, what is the likelihood that you'll integrate hands-on banking in your instruction? So if you can take a few seconds to answer that question. That would be great. Great. We'll give a few more seconds. And the poll has ended, so we'll wait for the results. While we're waiting on the results, I would like to encourage you, if you have any additional questions, please send them in. We do have several questions, and right after the polling ends, we'll go right into Q&A. Great. So of those that answered, it looks like somewhat likely is 23% and extremely likely is 22%. So that's great. And 0% marks not at all likely. So that's great. So thank you so much for submitting that information. One of the things too, just to share with you before we go into the Q&A portion, that we also ask these questions because we want to find out what we can do to better support everyone to integrate financial education into their system. So as you're starting to look and you want to integrate financial education and you start to look at these different tools, there is technical assistance that we can provide you to help you as you start that journey. So what I would like to do is I'd like to spend the next few minutes with some questions because we got some really good questions that have come in, and you can continue to submit them to me, and we can get through as many as we can. So Bonnie, the first question I'm going to give to you, do individuals have to create a login or have an email address to access the online version of hands-on banking?
No, they do not. So that's a great question. We do not collect any information from users on handsonbanking.org.
Okay.
So it's free. The other thing I'll let you know is it's non-commercial. There's absolutely no information specific there to Wells Fargo or to products or services. It is completely non-commercial.
Great. So then the next question is, I think we had this question last week, but it came in again. So do you provide train-the-trainer sessions on hands-on banking?
We do not hold any that are just kind of a matter of course, but Michael, if there is something we can do together to facilitate that, we're certainly open to that.
Okay, great. And to everyone, I am going to, as you can see on the slide, I'll also put it in the chat box. If you have additional questions like that or requesting a trainer on hands-on banking or additional questions, you can send them to ask@ndi-inc.org, and we will be sure to address them. All right. Lori, a question has come in that I'm going to direct to you. Will NDI be creating more quick reference guides on other barriers?
So great question. So if you are finding additional barriers, please let us know, and we'll take steps to provide some content for those concerns. But we invite you to take a look at the 15 top barriers, and so sometimes within one barrier, we've sort of tried to address several. So please take a look at those and get back to us. Great question.
Great. All right. So the next two questions kind of go hand in hand, I think. But so Bonnie, these will go to you. Does hands-on banking help us determine the best approach for integration? And then I will answer that from NDI standpoint as well. So Bonnie, could you answer that? Does hands-on banking help us determine the best approach for integration?
There's nothing specific on hands-on banking that would help you kind of do a self-assessment on your own abilities or interests or, preferred approaches.
Okay.
But there are a lot of tools that are available there as you kind of do your own research on the site that
Great.
will probably lead you to believe whether or not you're, on the approach that you're most comfortable with. And we've got Darlene on. Darlene, would you have anything to add? You may have lost her.
Yeah, I think she's on mute. But on my end, what I'll answer as well is Lori had mentioned the 6 steps to integrating financial education, the toolkit. And so in that toolkit gives the 6 different steps and kind of helps look at some of the things that Bonnie had shared. And we had created this in collaboration last year with Hands-on Banking and Wells Fargo. And so it allows you to kind of look at some different pieces that you can, to help you determine what is the best approach. Then something else to share is that if you are looking at integrating and still want more to look at, send us an email through ask@ndi-inc.org, and then what we'll do is Bonnie and our team will connect, and then we can be sure to get back to you to help you determine virtually what might be the best approach and looking at some of these different tools. So that's something we could look at. Now, Bonnie, here's a really good question that came in. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's a two-parter. It's a two-part question. So it's, what if I have multiple staff who I want to provide financial education, and some staff are traditionalists and others are digital agents? If we have staff choose their own comfort level, will the individual receive the same information? That's a good question.
That's a great question. And, I can't answer definitively what will occur with your team. But what I can tell you is that the information available on the tools and content on handsonbanking.org is consistent across the different mediums and very complementary. So if there's something in the instructor guide, right, that same content and information will be on the digital platform as well. So there's a one-for-one match. Now, the bigger question is around how they use those tools to execute. That piece I can't promise you, but I can promise you that the information is consistent and complementary across the different tools.
Great. And now the second part to that question is, which I think you pretty much answered regarding the team, because the second part that they asked is this the right approach, or should we choose one or the other for our organization to do?
I think that's really a matter of opinion, and I'll share mine, right, which is just an opinion, my perspective. Is I have seen things work best in any kind of education setting where the educator tries to match their style to the students or to the client in this case. So if you can kind of do, in terms of a needs assessment of your clients, trying to identify those who learn best in a traditional setting and match them up to your team members who are traditionalists in their teaching approach, and do the same on the digital side, you probably will have the best outcome.
Great. All right, perfect. Now, Darlene, I see that you might be unmuted. Did you want to share anything else on this question or the previous question?
I was just going to echo Bonnie's comments in that, you know, you never know who or what kind of challenges are going to walk through your door. And so that's a great thing about having the flexibility to leverage hands-on banking in a wide variety of ways, whether it's the traditionalist or the digital agent or a combination. You can really start to match the way that you deliver your services to the needs of the person that walks through the door.
Great. So the next question, we got over time for a couple more questions here. Lori, the question came in as, can we link the quick reference guides to our internal site for staff, our internal website for staff?
Oh, we would appreciate that. That's a great question. So sure. Just by copying the link to our site, you would be able to upload that information easily for your staff to view. And you know, many providers want to be able to demonstrate, and many participants, I find, really want a certification that they've completed participation in financial education. So that's something unique about the hands-on banking curriculum, that as a person works through the materials, they can print out a certification, for their work that they've done, and that can be added to that individual's resume too, that they've taken steps to prepare for employment.
Great. All right. So we have one more question here, actually, that came in. So this goes to hands-on banking, and it says, do you have a checklist on the top topics we should cover with our clients, or how do we determine which topics to provide?
Great. So this is Lori, if I could answer that. So we have 15 quick reference guides. So I was thinking to print those out, and during workshops and as people come in for services, to make those available for individuals so they can pick what they think to be relevant. And then that's a way to survey what seems to be most relevant concerns for people who are walking in the door. And I think, too, as people participate in the workshop settings, it's a great opportunity to ask your participants how they found the experience, what they think could make it better, and we are all open to that feedback, whatever steps we can, take to make the information more usable for everyone along the line.
Great. And Bonnie, do you have any quick response to that, or anything else you would like to add?
Just reinforcement that I think it's always important. You had in your process flow, Michael, just the needs assessment piece. Even a quick needs assessment will help you identify where you've got the greatest opportunity.
Great. Excellent. All right. Well, we've come up to our time today. I want to say thanks so much to Lori Schaller for sharing information. I want to thank Darlene Goins for sharing information, answering questions, and would also like to thank Bonnie for sharing the information with us today on how to integrate it. And also thank you, Bonnie, for helping us determine which type of approach is best for us, the traditionalist, the digital agent, or the great combiner. So that was really a great approach to today. So thank you for that. Again, I'd like to say thank you to Hands-On Banking and Wells Fargo for the sponsor, being a sponsor of this webinar, but also for providing the collaboration and the support to create these new tools to enhance the delivery of financial education for individuals. Please join us next Wednesday for our last webinar as part of this series. And on this webinar, we're going to look at strategies and tools to move individuals towards savings. We're going to look at how do we make sure that individuals we work with are ABLE ready, meaning ABLE ready to open an ABLE account. What do individuals have to do to get ready for that? And we're going to highlight the different pieces on hands-on banking that will allow individuals to then go to make the informed choices. So please be sure to join us next week, Wednesday, November 15th, for our next webinar at 2 p.m. Eastern on strategies and tools to move individuals towards savings. We want to thank you all again so much for participating today. And I'd also, again, would like to thank Bonnie Wallace and Lori Schaller for sharing the information with us today. And finally, I'd like to thank our IT communications team, Katie Achenbach and Maggie Redden, for all of their work to behind the scenes to put this webinar series together. We appreciate it. So with that, I hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to talking with you next Wednesday. Thank you.